Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Million Dollar Media. I'm your host, Max Keller-Halls, and today we are concluding part one of the Alien collection with the new movie in the Alien franchise, Alien Romulus. And with me today we have...
Nicholas Spiro.
Basically this movie is just another Alien movie. It's kind of like the first film. It's got elements of all the Alien films, good and bad in my opinion. It's basically Don't Breathe, but with Alien.
Yeah, I would say that he has his famous tropes, and I feel like that he really shows that in this film.
I'll say this. For 2/3 of this movie, this was one of my favorite films. I was really enjoying it. I was like, oh man, the Alien franchise is back. And then, for me personally, it kind of lost me in the third act.
I disagree entirely, honestly. I think that through and through, this was a solid Alien film. It completely rejuvenated the franchise, in my opinion. So this is also coming from a point where I am a fan of both Prometheus and Covenant. Those are two great movies, in my opinion. They're way higher up there, higher, in my opinion, versus Alien 3 and Resurrection. Alien 3 and Resurrection, down low tier, very bottom of the list.
I agree. I don't like Alien 3 or Resurrection, but I'll have to disagree with you. I don't like Prometheus or Covenant, in my opinion. I still think the original two, Alien and Aliens, are the best. I'm more of an Aliens person,
yes.
But I wasn't a fan of Prometheus, and I was not a fan of Covenant. So going into this film, there was already a pretty low bar set for me. And I do think the film is better than Prometheus and Covenant. I'm just saying, the movie overall was really good, that I can't say it's a bad film. I just wasn't a fan of what happened at the ending, of just the ending in general.
Okay.
That it kind of just soured the whole thing for me. And there was other parts in the movie where, more towards the end, that I was like, that felt a little fan servicey. Some things I thought that were fan service in this film were like cool in canon, in world additions. There's a ton of nods to Alien Isolation that my brother pointed out to me. But
I did see that, and I very much enjoyed that. I thought that was a great addition. Technically, it is canonized, but it also is just something that is less perceived in this universe.
Yeah, pretty much everything that I don't like about this movie is because it is affected by other things in this franchise that I don't like seeping its way into this film. And
I totally get that. That is an opinion that I've been seeing around after watching this film. I recently watched this yesterday. Mm-hmm. So, I did my research right before this, and I saw people's perceptions of this movie. Mm-hmm. And I saw that people were having that same sour taste in their mouth because of certain aspects in the timeline or the universe of Alien. That's why they didn't like parts of it.
Well, for me, it's not continuity issues. It's just certain things from other movies that I don't like are in this movie. Again, a lot of what we'll probably talk about is spoilers. There's a certain thing from Prometheus that's in this that I wasn't a huge fan of in Prometheus. And I was like, okay, let's see how they take this and see where this goes. And where they took it for me wasn't really all that cool, in my opinion. But I think I'm coming off on this movie a little bit too negative. I will say, what really helps this movie and makes me like it and want to see more of this is the main two characters.
Correct. Yes, I think the main two characters, they have a lot of promise, a lot of potential. Mm-hmm. The way that the movie goes about, I think this is could be a reboot of the franchise in a new form or aspect. You could see a future and possibly even having Fede direct those future parts as well.
Yeah. And I think Kaylee Spaney is a great lead. She doesn't just play Ripley 3.0 because there's another character in this franchise that I was like, you're just doing Ripley again. Ripley's awesome, but I like that Kaylee Spaney is just doing her own thing while still being a really capable person. What really helps is the fact that she has a direct connection with someone in this film, whereas Ripley has always been someone that no one listens to. That's been a thing throughout all of the Alien films that she's in. No one listens to Ripley, and bad shit happens. And
Exactly.
whereas this film, no one really listens to her except her brother, Andy, played by David Johnson, who, in my opinion, as everybody else says, is saying online, just steals the show. He's the best.
An amazing performance. I feel like that his performance like outshined almost everyone on that set.
Yeah, he was really good. Like, okay, they kind of say this in the trailer too. He plays a synthetic, and
Yes.
the way they explain, like, when he has like two different modes in this film, like pre-implant and then post-implant, he plays it so well while still being the same character. Like, it's not like a complete 180. It's believable that that Andy is still in there, just bogged down by all these like parameters and such. Like, it's a really fascinating performance.
How I compared Andy's performance or the David Johnson's performance is Andy in the two parts. So a little background. My mom works with autistic children, and sometimes I volunteer with that. How I felt with the first version of Andy is a kid with autism a little bit. And then the moment that in the future of the film, you see this other version of Andy, and that is like someone without autism.
Yeah.
And like, I feel like it really worked well in a way of like perceiving these two types of personalities, these two type of ways of thinking and everything like that.
Mm-hmm. It's not like a performance that's meant to like make fun of anybody with autism.
Definitely not.
Like,
Definitely
it's played with respect, and everybody for the most part treats him with respect.
It shines light on something for being in science fiction. It's showing real world in fiction. And
Yeah.
I think it's a great way of showing it.
I agree.
It's not blatant. It's not up in your face, but it's there. It's subtle. And it's something that, like, even how people were treating Andy pre and post, like, it kind of shows, like, how they talked to him, how they acted around him and everything.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I saw that too. And I mean, watching the movie, I was like, okay, I didn't think about it right away, but the more like I got out of the theater, I was like, oh yeah, he kind of reads like this. And like, that's cool that they portrayed this character in this way. And like, they don't make like people who act like this, they don't villainize that. And like, yeah, he just steals the show. And like, honestly, like, more of David Johnson, please. I want to see this actor in more things.
Exactly. And I'd really hope to see more of him in either this franchise or in future projects as well.
Mm-hmm. There's other characters in this film. The only one that like really stands out is Isabella Myles as
I think she had a good performance. I think that I mean, she didn't have a lot of screen time, but for the things that she was in, she had a way of being that person being chased around.
Yeah, she played the final girl really well. Or like a final girl pretty well. And I don't know, the acting is not the worst part of this film, and that's always a good thing where it's like, no, everybody came to set and put in a great performance. And
I think that was the best thing about it. Yeah, like there was no one that looked like they, and maybe that's also talking about before, they were happy to be there. They gave it up their all. They had their ability to put it out all on the floor without seeming like, oh, I'm doing this just for a paycheck.
Yeah, everybody seemed to have a fun time, and that's always great to hear about behind the scenes stuff, is that like everybody seemed to enjoy what they were doing and wanted to make the best possible product. Like, I thought there were some really creative like set pieces in this film.
Oh, definitely.
Like, the two that stand out to me, all I'll say is that they have to change the temperature in the room, and I felt like that scene was very tense and interesting.
Oh, very tense, yes. I think that was something that was very, like, that was a very creative choice by Fede. I feel like he probably went, like, I don't know what exactly happened, but I'm sure he went to Ridley Scott about this, and he told him about it, and he's like, I never really thought about that. Like, how do people avoid facehuggers? There's got to be a way.
I will say, it does take a little bit out of it, because there's moments in this film where they do just swat these things out of the air. And I was thinking to myself, like, oh, it's that easy to just kind of swat these things away. I don't know why I just seen like facehuggers throughout all the series. It's just that they've always been so like able to like latch on you no matter what. Just seeing people like swat them out of the air real quick. I was like, oh, okay, well, all right.
To counter that, I feel like every time in the series that we've seen really face huggers, it's been like they pop out at the last minute.
That's true.
I feel like this is the only time where like you see them running around, like that they're coming from a far distance. They're coming in an open area compared to like just out of nowhere. So I feel like that is the difference.
Yeah.
So I feel like the swatting actually shows like that, like they're like other creatures out there. Like trying to think of like what would be a similarity to real world animals.
A raccoon?
No,
I mean,
I'm thinking more of like scorpions or like.
Oh, I'm thinking like an animal that's relatively the same size of like the.
Oh, true. Okay, I was thinking of like ones that like could jump out at you or something like that.
Yeah, I'm just thinking like raccoons usually jump out and like try to attack just as like self-defense, but these things are like purely offensive. But
or geese. Geese would be a good
or geese. Oh my god. And the other scene that I really thought was really creative was the ZeroG scene.
I think that was a really good choice of creativity. I think like we don't see a lot of ZeroG scenes in the Alien franchise.
No, you don't. I mean,
even in the video game, you don't even see that. So I thought it was a really different opportunity.
I thought it was a really creative way to get around a thing in the franchise that's always been not an issue as in a bad thing, but just an issue for the characters to have to get over.
Exactly. So it was a hard obstacle.
Yeah, and I thought this is a really cool in-world way to get around that, and I was like, very cool. I enjoyed that scene a lot, and I like the bits of technology this film adds, like the portable X-ray and the new pulse rifle was really cool.
I think that my favorite thing about this movie is their use of old equipment to match the first ones.
I agree. Yep.
I think that is the best thing. That is the best choice they ever made, because I feel like that's the one thing that Prometheus and Covenant lack.
I agree. That's always been my biggest problem with like those prequels, is that they have such advanced tech that I'm like, where did all this come from? Why doesn't everybody have this stuff? But then like in this film, you basically see like, oh no, well, we're going back to that. These are just everyday people doing this kind of thing. And these aren't like highly paid scientists and astronauts going out on this expedition.
Not only that, but like they used the right technology. They used all the right sound effects from back then. So it felt just like the originals, which I think is like the thing that helps people of new fans and old fans like come together and unite for this.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that really helps with the people who have trouble with continuity and everything. They're worried about like, oh, as the series grows and we come into the later ages, like, yes, the technology is different, but here's why.
No, yeah, I appreciated that. I always love a good retro-futuristic style of sci-fi, and Alien's always been, like, the top version of that. So seeing them commit to that style is always really cool. Guess if I have one more positive thing that I could say that's non-spoiler is I just love seeing the xenomorphs on the screen again.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in this film when they were like saying that, okay, we're going back to practical effects, and when you see these things up close, it's like, oh man, like they're so good to look at, and like they did such a great job of getting that look right. This is how Alien should be filmed, and I don't know, I just thought hats off to the special effects department and the CG artists, because I really like the look of everything in the film when in space.
Definitely.
Them, like, this whole film revolves around a planet with rings around it, with like a asteroid belt kind of thing around it. Not an asteroid belt, right, but just like general debris and ice and stuff like that. I really like the look of that.
And I enjoy like that it's something that is like a natural race against the clock in this film. Not something that just seems like very obscure or very out of there.
Mm-hmm.
So I think it was a good choice all around for that as well. Honestly, I mean, like Fede, I've seen Evil Dead, the reboot, his reboot.
Mm-hmm.
Not a huge fan of it, but I think that in parts he had a good use of special effects and everything.
Oh yeah, like that film is like a special effects like showcase.
So I know exactly why he was passed on this baton for this film, because the use of the special effects of this and everything is like you could see how well, if he did well on that, he could do well on this.
Mm-hmm. True. Is there any non-spoiler things you want to say before we continue on to like just a quick little spoiler discussion, or at least the ending?
Nothing else.
If you're a fan of the franchise, definitely go see it and make up your own mind about it. Because I feel like I feel like this is a film that you're either gonna really like, or you're just gonna be not disappointed overall, but just like, I didn't like that part. But no way do you go out of this film saying that was shit. Like, everything about this was done to the best of its ability.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a personal taste if you do not like certain elements in this film. And that's where my negatives come in and my overall thoughts of this film. Like, I don't think this is going to make my top 10 list unless there's no other good movies that come out of this year starting from here on. But, or at least my personal top 10 list. If it's like if everybody else on the channel thinks it's in their top 10, then I will definitely put it on there.
Right now it's in my top 10, I think, in my opinion.
That's fair. And I'm not going to say like no one's wrong about how they feel about this film. That's not my goal here. It's just I just want to voice my opinion and
of
just
course.
say like,
and that's why we have discussions. That's why we have the open dialogue. Have the ability to debate.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, we're gonna go into spoilers now. Like, if there's anything like that's throughout the movie that was like a big like spoiler that I didn't want to like reveal in the non-spoiler, is that they bring back Ian Holm as a synthetic android, not Ash, but a new character named Rook.
I think that was a great idea. And here's my problem. People are saying, like, this is fan service. Yeah, well, you're going to have fan service. But, I mean, that's what happens in these franchises and these universes. You got to have those little references to keep people interested. And I didn't think of it much as fan service, but more so along the lines of, this is in between Alien 1 and 2. And the synthetics all had one design.
There was a brand, there was like a make and model of this particular synthetic with Ash, because we also have Andy in this film who is a different synthetic. So there were clearly different make and models, maybe built for like different things, because it seems to be that the chief scientific officer on all these ships seem to have been the Ian Holm, Ash, Rook kind of design. I think the only problem I have with Rook is that it's this thing of like bringing dead actors back to life.
I guess that is my one concern with stuff like this. I mean, there was the controversy in Rogue One when they had the CGI Tarkin. So, I mean, I understand that. But also, I feel like it's a more way of honoring them instead of trying to replace them and make people feel like, oh, like this person wasn't as important. I see it as a way of honoring. And
I feel like
I can look behind, or I can look past like the CGI and stuff like that. I understand like that there's the controversy with AI and everything, and I'm completely behind like that it could be used for evil and taking away like people's ability to act and everything. But like I feel like this is a just different circumstance.
I feel like the director and the writer of this film, like, they were definitely wanting this to be like a loving tribute to Ian Holm and that character, who is pretty much who was a very important character in that first film. I guess my problem is just like, as always, is like, this is just another step in the direction of like, we can bring back anybody from the dead, and I feel like we gotta like kind of hit the brakes when it comes to that kind of stuff. I have no problem with the character or like the model being in this film, or like the model of that android being in this film. I guess I just have a problem with the real world consequence of using that technology to bring people back. Yeah.
I think that's an important note to make going forward when making these films.
Yeah. And by far, this is not the worst bit of fan service I've thought of in this film, because it actually serves like a purpose of like, oh no, they technically bought and sold all these kind of robots, and I thought there was a perfectly good story-based reason why they had him in there.
If they were using it then, why not use it in between that time when this Romulus is taking place?
Yeah, especially since it's like shortly after the events of the first film.
Exactly.
And they make a point to show like, yeah, the alien is back because the Weyland-Yutani company sent a ship out to the Nostromo wreckage, and they found like this cocoon basically, and they capture it and they bring it back to the Romulus space station where Rook tests on it. And like one thing I thought going into this film, like I saw in the trailer in one of the TV spots saying, "Oh yeah, the alien from the first movie is gonna be back in this film." I'm like, "Oh, that's a really cool way to like make this a sequel and kind of make that alien from the first film feel even more special that it survived
Right.
that encounter, and it makes the alien more scary because like it can survive what happened at the end of that and make it to this film."
This quote unquote indestructible force.
Yeah, and then the last thing you see of it in this film is it just being hung up on the ceiling. And I was like, all right, well, I guess we're not going to focus on the original alien. And okay, do you want to get into the big thing now?
Sure, let's get into it.
Okay, so first off, the thing that I have a big problem with is I do not like the black goo from Prometheus. I do not like it. I feel like it's a really cheap way to explain how new monsters are made or new creatures and stuff are made. I feel like the only film to actually do anything interesting with it was Prometheus, and then even in that film I was like, okay, I don't really get this stuff, and I just feel like this is just going to be used as an explanation from now on of like, why is this creature here? Black goo. How's this happening? Black goo. I'm like, okay, I guess everything is just surrounded by the black goo now. And then I will say I do like that they managed to connect the original Alien film and Prometheus in this film in that way. Like, I was really curious to see what they were going to do with it, even though I was like, oh, black goo. All right, let's see how they do it. And I was like, okay, I like the idea of, like, they have to extract it from the xenomorph, because I guess if David did create the xenomorph with this black goo stuff, it makes sense why the aliens would have it in their, I guess, bloodstream or something in their DNA. I think the idea of making it like the reason why Weyland-Yutani is constantly trying to collect the alien, like this gives the reason why, oh, hey, bring the alien back. Crew is expendable.
I think it's an interesting thing, honestly. I think it drives the story a little more in parts.
Okay. I think it's a cool idea, but my problem is at the end of this film, what they decide to use it for with the offspring. And honestly, this is my biggest problem with the film. I think
the hybrid was amazing. I think that is like the most scary thing we've had in this franchise since the Queen itself. In my opinion, I think this is something that really, really brings in the concepts of the engineers and the xenomorphs and humans, and how they all can be this hybrid creature that could be really dangerous if got loose.
Here's my issue with the hybrid, or the offspring, or how I want to call him, Slendermorph. Like, if you think about it, like, engineers and xenomorphs are already technically part human. If you really think about it in continuity and lore of this franchise.
Okay.
Engineers, that one engineer drank the black goo, dissolved himself into the water, and then that created life. Meaning, we are part engineer already. And then my biggest thing is like, okay, this is half xenomorph, half human. And my thing is like, well, the thing that makes the xenomorph special is that it's already part human.
Yes, you're correct.
So like the whole point of the xenomorph is that it impregnates a human, and then they have human traits. They have the human-like teeth. They have the human skull, the relative bone structure of like being upright and on 2 feet, and various other details that are probably not like obvious, but like in the xenomorph design overall. So for me, like taking all the cool elements, like the giant banana skull, taking that away, the no eyes, like just taking away all the stuff that makes the xenomorph special and making it look more human and engineer, which already I was never really a big fan of the engineer design. I just never really liked it. So just taking away all that cool stuff from what makes the xenomorph special, and the fact that they proved in this film they can make the xenomorph look cool and look good on camera, and then just taking it all away for this new thing that, honestly has already been done in this franchise before.
I see what you mean. So the xenomorphs,
Yeah.
they come from the face huggers and everything
Yes.
like that,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
they
yeah.
lay the eggs, and that's the, as David said, the perfect organism,
Hmm.
the creature that like has the traits of what every creature should have.
Hmm.
Um, but with that DNA, they, as Rook said, they synthesized it. So it has human interaction to it, a human complication
Hmm.
that has kind of like defaced it, made it different. And that's why this hybrid is different, is because it has human interruption, or I'm trying to think of the right word here, but like it interference. It has interference from humans in their ways of thinking like, oh, we could make this better, but it was already perfect.
Hmm.
I think this shows that like the xenomorph design was the perfect organism, and then this is human intervention.
Okay, I see where you're coming from there. And I think that is a totally fair point that this is technically not the perfect organism. This is a bad $5 version of the perfect organism.
Right. They thought that this is like, if they synthesize this, this is going to become like the best thing for humans. But as we saw with the rat, like it doesn't work.
I would be completely on your side and agreeing with you if the design was different.
Okay, fair. It did have a lot of engineer influence,
I,
which could be pushed away a little bit, but I get the reason for it a little bit.
I think if it were to have had the banana shaped head,
I get what you're saying, like kind of like the backwards hockey thing, like, or
yeah, yeah, yeah.
what the guys wear when they like do the really fast
Yeah.
skiing.
Like, I think if it were to have that, I think the design would have been cooler for me. Or, like, just a more elongated head and something more close to a xenomorph, like, skull. But with this, I'm like, I don't know. It's just not that scary to me because it's a human face. And to me, that's like, that's not scary to me because, like, it doesn't speak. It just snarls and acts like an animal. And to me, seeing humans act like animals just makes me laugh.
Okay, fair.
So, but when I see like a creature that's more animalistic and like that's not that it has human elements, but it doesn't look like a human, that scares me more because I'm like, I don't know what it's gonna do. But giving it this like, giving them the eyes of like a child, and again, it's also the problem that I have with movies like Alien Resurrection. Like the creature in that film, I don't like it either because, again, it's the same problems I have with this creature. It's just like when you add too many human elements to something, it's just not interesting to me anymore. Like,
Exactly. Fair.
like to me, I would have liked an idea of more like take what we know about the xenomorphs right now and push their evolution in a different direction. Like I know
Okay.
like the problem like with that is like okay, well, we know that these things have to have a queen at some point. My thinking is if you're going to be messing with the overall like genetic structure of these things, push it in a different direction. Mess with the idea of what can the queen look like? What can these race of aliens, what can these xenomorphs look like without a queen? Maybe make a king or something like that. Make something different with what we have. But I feel like this is just going back to things in the past where I'm like, I didn't like that before and I don't like it now. And another problem I have with it is like we just get another ending like Alien and Aliens and Alien Resurrection and Alien Covenant where it's like, okay, how do we defeat this thing? Suck it out into space. It would be more interesting if it just wasn't the one character having to survive this thing because they kind of just take Andy out of that scene real quick
True.
and Kay, but she kind of gives birth to the thing. So I was like, okay, she's dead. I guess what I would have liked is like what made this film so unique and special was the relationship between Rain and Andy. I would have liked to have seen them continue that into the end of this film, like the complete end. I felt like that would have been like something unique and different than just the final girl. Like just give us something a little different.
I thought like maybe like, oh, he was gonna come in like at the last moment, like he's like using the last of his juice to help her out
Yeah,
in some
exactly.
way,
Like
shape, or form.
just
Like if she's like struggling like with like trying to get back up like with the rope, like he's the one who like turns it on
Mm-hmm.
with the last bit of his power to like get her back in there or something.
Exactly, or like him. Not, I mean, I don't want to fight with the thing because I feel like that would kind of take the horror away from it.
I feel, yeah. I think the last boss battle between the hero girl and the antagonist, I think that was like the right choice for that.
I
But
mean,
like, yeah, like having something like where it's like it shows the sibling bond between
mm-hmm,
the two.
mm-hmm. That would have helped to make the ending a little bit more interesting and unique. Because then at the end, I was just like, okay, I know how she's going to defeat this thing. I'm just waiting to see how she does it because I really don't like this thing. So I'm just kind of like, this. I feel like this movie's dragging a bit because honestly, if this film ended with them leaving the Romulus station with the three of them, easily in my top 10. Like,
Interesting.
but the moment they get into that last bit with Slender Morph, I'm like, this just didn't work for me. It soured the whole rest of the movie because I'm like, I know where this all leads to, and I don't know. Like, the ending of a movie is so important to get right.
No, I agree.
And
Um,
again, this is just my thoughts on the ending. I've heard so many people walk out of that movie and go, holy shit, what was that?
like that's the thing I was saying, like how like it was something different. It was something that like kind of a new way to be scared of this. Because I mean, like, yes, the xenomorphs are scary,
Mm-hmm.
scary as shit. Fair enough. I didn't watch all these films until like last year. Being older, I have a different concept of like what is fear and what is not fear to me.
That's fair.
Uh, so this thing being new to me, being in the theaters for the first time, watching one of my first Alien films in the theaters, it was something different, and I felt like that it was something that really kind of like got me frightened a little bit. For I think it's more for those new fans out there.
I guess. And yeah, that you know what, you make a good point. Like this is definitely for some people who never watched an Alien film, never watched Prometheus, and I feel like you're gonna be a little lost at some points if you've never seen any of that stuff. But like,
Fair enough, people could come into this not watching anything, and it can be quote unquote an independent watch.
yeah, I could. You know what? I'll retract my previous statement. I think like the whole black goo thing they just say in this film is just extracted from the aliens, so you really don't need to know where that actually comes from or the whole story behind that. The character Rook in this film, he's not Ash, so it's not that important. Okay, there's two things that are like a major throwback to the original. One, it's seeing the derelict, not the derelict, but like the destroyed Nostromo, and David saying, "Get away from her, you bitch," or in this version, "You bitch." And
I think that I'd like that. I mean, like people are like, "Oh, that was the fan service." I
that
thought
was the
like
that was the part that kind of made me go, ugh. And I know people are like, well, Deadpool and Wolverine did that shit. I'm like, well, in Deadpool and Wolverine, there's this element of like Deadpool can break the fourth wall, and so by other characters kind of saying things they've said in the past makes sense.
it's right, exactly.
Like there's like I don't want to spoil Deadpool and Wolverine, even though just go on Twitter.
Right.
There's a character that says something from his first film that I cheered at, and I was like, that's awesome. I'm glad they brought that line back. But in this film, it's a character that has no connection to Ripley.
True.
And according to this timeline, hasn't even happened yet. Like, honestly, if he were to have just said, get away from her, and just end it there, that would have been enough of like a wink and a nod to just be like, okay, perfectly fine.
Yeah, I think like the end part, the "you bitch," like that was kind of a, like, I don't know. It could be without. In fairness, because I feel like the biggest thing with that line is she knows it's a queen and she's talking to the queen.
Exactly.
You don't know what gender this xenomorph is, so I mean, I guess that does kind of dilute the line. But I mean, in my opinion, I considered it like kind of like how there's like I got a bad feeling about this. Like well, you gotta have one of those like famous lines that can be used.
I don't feel like you always have to. Like,
no, you don't always have to use it, but I feel like it's been a long time since it was used, so
I don't. Well, to be fair, I also seen so many people parody that in other things.
Of course.
So seeing it come back in this, I wasn't thinking of it as like a cool throwback. I was thinking of it more as like them kind of like, okay, we got to connect this into Aliens somehow. And I was like, well, like, I don't know. Plus, the idea of get away from her, you bitch, is more like come fight me.
Exactly.
And in this scenario, it wasn't that.
It was the end of the battle.
Yeah, it was like he's already won the fight.
Right.
Like, I don't know. That was the part that was like, I don't like this.
It was a fun surprise to me.
But yeah, that's going to be our thoughts for Alien Romulus. Overall, I enjoyed the film. I just had some pretty big problems with the ending. I highly recommend you go make your own opinion and go see it in the theaters while you still can. Because I can't be the only one that doesn't like it. Or as much as others. But
I hope that more people also, or not more, but I hope that other people also agree with me.
No matter what you think of this film, I think your opinion is still very valid.
Definitely.
Because it is one of those films that is just like purely based off personal taste. And yeah.
Thank you again for having me on. I really enjoy having these discussions.
If you like this video, hit that like button. If you want to see more, hit that subscribe button. Leave your comment down below. Subscribe to our Patreon for $5 a month. You can listen to all of our audios unedited. And we're also going to be releasing some, let's just say, like some different kinds of content on the Patreon soon. So yeah, I'm Max Gellerhalls.
And I'm Nick Spiro.
Hope you have a good day. Bye.